Well, there's more LS type motors out there than you can shake a stick at. Not to be confused with the LTs that came before the LSs and the LTs that came after the LSs. In between, there's something like 7 or 8 different LS type engines in different platforms, different output, etc. I'm going to go over those best I can to make it less confusing and hopefully make it make sense for you. All right, well, good Wednesday, crappy day outside again here on the East Coast. I feel like it's been raining nonstop for about 5 days, but it is what it is. As far as the Z06 behind me goes, I got some goodies in the mail that have been in the mail for about 6 weeks. I got the night drive lights up front. I got some halos up back, got a diffuser. But as soon as that stuff gets here, it should be this week, should be. I'll do videos on those and that'll be out to you guys. So today I wanted to cover LS motors, just the LS's, not the C5 type LT, which is used as a distributor, and then the LT, which is a 13, or I guess the 2014 C7 and up, uses the newer LT type motor, and the biggest difference there is as direct injection. We're going to focus on the LS1 through the LS9, and to make it even more confusing, they don't follow a chronological order, how the name would suggest. So I'll go through one at a time and kind of go through the differences, the output, and what platforms they came in, and any notable things about that certain LS. And real quick, all LSs are push rods, meaning there's one cam in the middle. The weight's kind of all down low. It's a very simple design. It's very compact. It's very strong. It's the complete opposite of over-engineering, to sum it up, if you will. And obviously these motors are amazing. You can easily get 300,000 miles out of a stock block without tearing it apart or any kind of overhaul needed. Case in point right now, there's a C5 Corvettes with a LS1 motor, close to 800,000 miles on it with no real maintenance outside of oil changes. So these little motors are definitely very stout, very reliable, and very sought after. All right, so we're going to start with the LS1. This is the guy that kind of kicked it all off for the LS platform way back in 96 with the 1997 Corvette. This was a 5.7 liter, like I said, push rod V8, and the LS1 was all aluminum block heads, all of it. And this would be in the base coupe C5 Corvette from 97 all the way through 2004. And this guy, out of the factory, out of the box, was 345 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. Now, for the weight of the engine, the size of the engine, that was phenomenal. And just how reliable it was, great starting point for the LS. And this motor would also include the Camaro, and it's what, Gen 4, I think? Don't quote me, I'm not a Camaro guy, I think it was Gen 4, towards the end, and the GTO in the 2004 and 2005. All right, so we go from the LS1, and you would think, oh, LS2, you'd be wrong. It's gonna go LS1, LS6, and the LS6 is what started the Z06 and the C5 platform. The biggest differences here, it had new block castings, better cooling, had a slightly more aggressive camshaft, and 243 heads that allowed better breathing. Now the injectors and the valves and even the exhaust on the Z06 was refined a little bit. That with an intake plenum, a little bit more refined as well from the LS1. That got you to about 385 horsepower from the stock 345 on the LS1. But you'll see that number increase on the 2002 Z06 with a little more aggressive cam, a little better flowing intake situation. A lot of people don't realize that the LS6 was also in a Cadillac, the CTS-V, 2004, 2005, the original CTS-V, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and even I forget that the LS6 was shoehorned into the CTS-V. All right, now we have the LS2, which is technically now the Gen 4 type LS. The previous LS1, LS6 was the Gen 3. It's really confusing, I know. So they changed the generations within the LS, but the LS is also the same family. Now this was a 6-liter, but don't confuse this with the 6-liter truck engine that came on previous trucks in the past. And again, this motor was all aluminum, had a 3.62-inch stroke and a 4-inch bore. Flat top pistons, and redline was now 6,500 RPM. And this was a perfectly square output of 400 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque. And the LS2 was kind of short-lived within the LS family, from the 05 to the 07 Corvette to the 2006 GTO, the Trailblazer SS, which in my opinion does not get nearly enough credit as it should, and the short-lived SSR also used the LS2. And I think it was in that weird Saab that came out. Very short production, very rare. I could be wrong on that. All right, the LS3 and also kind of the L99, which if I say L99, it's the same thing as LS3. It just had a computerized fuel management system, but essentially the exact same 3 as the LS3. Now this was bumped up to 6.2 liter at this point, a slightly bigger bore, and just a slightly bigger stroke. And we're talking minimal, but just enough to give it about another 30 horsepower for this platform. And one of the biggest refinements too to the LS3 was actually the exhaust manifolds. They flowed much better, very similar to the Z06, which you would have seen in this same C6 platform in the Z06. And the cylinder heads were just slightly tweaked to the L92 style. You can find the LS3 in the 2008 to the 2013 base Corvette or the Grand Sports, 2009 Pontiac G8 GXP, 2014 to 2016 Chevy SS, which you never hear about, that 2010 to 15 Camaro with the manual transmission. The automatic version has the L99, which I talked about a little bit earlier, which had a really unique fuel management system. But just know that the L99 only made 400 horsepower for whatever reason. All right, real quick, I'll go over the LSA because you don't hear too much about this motor, and it's very similar to the LS9, but it's not. It is the LS3 with a supercharger. It's got a 1.9 liter supercharger. You can find this guy in the later CTS-V and the Z01 Camaro in the 5th generation. And this guy made about 555 horsepower and 550 foot-pounds of torque. So no slouch. Very unique motor. You don't see it too often, but it's very similar to the LS9, but it's not. All right, here's one motor you don't really hear too much about just because of the way it was designed, and that's simply the LS4. Long story short, that just means you could mount this thing transversely. So instead of a rear-wheel drive car, you can make this for a front-wheel drive platform, which is just stupid in my opinion. That kind of power to front-wheel drive because you're gonna all kind of crazy torque steer and almost impossible to control. But they put this thing in a lot of cars, more than I thought while doing research on this. It was a smaller version, a 5.3 liter of the LS platform, but you can find it in the later model Grand Prix 05 to 08, the 06 to 09 Impala, the 06 07 Monte Carlo SS, and the 08 09 Buick LaCrosse. Now what's different from this block to the truck version of the 5.3 is that this was aluminum and it used the LS6 cylinder heads at 243. So it was a very unique blend of motor that they made it work for a more streamlined and easy to punch out, if you will, to put these in more production, higher volume cars. Now they had to get creative with the water pump. They really got to flatten this thing so it could fit sideways in the engine bays. You had a shortened crankshaft, very unique bell housing on the damn thing. Now, this thing also only made just over 300 horsepower at 303 and 323 pounds-feet of torque, but you could tune these little guys and get them pretty damn quick. All right, LS7. You can find this guy in the C6 Z06 from 2006 to 2013. And 13, you could also find it in the, what was that damn thing? The 427, the Corvette 427, which was a convertible type deal. And 427, that's the cubic inch for the LS7, in case you weren't aware. Now, this was the largest factory LS ever made with a bore of 4.125 and a 4-inch stroke. This guy naturally aspirated, made 505 horsepower and 470 foot-pounds of torque. Now, what's crazy about this cross-plane crank was that it could go all the way to 7,000 RPM, which is nuts for a pushrod cross-plane. It just blows my mind. And I forgot, this also was available in the very unique 2014, 2015 Z28 Camaro, which you never see. If you have one of those, hold on to it. It's going to be worth $1 billion in 20 years. All right, and lastly is the LS9, which is pretty much just an LS3 with a 2.3 liter supercharger strapped on top of that bad boy. The internals were fortified just a little bit. This thing had a super aggressive camshaft right out of the factory. And if you're not familiar, all LS9s were hand-built, similar to how the new C8 Z06s, all the motors, the flat plane cranks will be hand-built. And this guy came out in 2009 with the Corvette ZR1, which ran through 2013. And this guy from the factory, 638 horsepower and 604 foot-pounds of torque. Well, there you go. That's a quick overview of all the LS platforms. What they went into, their power, and what kind of makes them unique to their platform and what they are. It's confusing. Even for me, it fucks me up sometimes when I look at an LS. I'm like, oh shit, what is that? Oh yeah. And then later on, you have the LT, which came out, like I said, the C7. The biggest thing there was just direct injection and more computerized controlled shit on it. But actually, the LT1 in my C7, it ticked so loud. The direct injection was so loud. With the windows down, it was kind of annoying. Different tick than the sewing machine you get in the LS6. But good motor. All LS is a good motor. Even the new LTs, good motor. And the C8 LT2, I'm not sure yet. I'll know in a couple months when I get mine. But yeah, good little motors. They're cool. I apologize, my energy level is kind of low. I'm working nights right now. I'm exhausted. But I've been meaning to put this video together for like a week. I should be hitting 10,000 subscribers this week, which is freaking amazing. I love you guys. Awesome. Me and the wife will be doing a video together to celebrate that and doing the reveal of our build, which has already been submitted to GM. So more to follow on that. That'll be a huge production too when I get to C8, of course. So, all right, guys, go enjoy your Wednesday, and I'll catch you next time. Mark out.